Okay, so what I was saying, skills anxiety. So the decision for businesses, do we buy the skills, do we build the skills? And what do we have today, what do we need in the future? But then it goes the other way as well for employees. Do I have the skills that my business needs, that my industry needs? Am I relevant? Will my role, can I contribute in 5 years? So the anxiety is really a two-way stream. Some of you might have seen this before. This is one of our favourite talk tracks to mention. This is some work done by Gartner, a gentleman called Brian Knapp. And what his research had done was to show that actually we're in the moment of a disrupted career landscape. What we're seeing is that people are spending more time at the coalface, so they're staying in their roles for longer. And when they do have a promotion, it's a much steeper rise. And what can happen there is potential career derailment when people haven't had the exposure to grow particular skills along the way to prepare them for that particular promotion. So we're seeing a really different scenario from many years ago, where every 2 years you get a promotion, every 2 years there's a job title change, every 2 years you get more money. I'd love to hear back from those of you when we have the conversation points throughout the session, if you think your organisation is reflecting this, or if you're still every 2 years that there is an ability to change. The good news is that when we're looking at a PwC survey here, for example, a huge percentage of employees actually want to reskill and retrain. So it's not that there is an appetite. Employees are saying, I'm happy to learn. And in other research, it actually says that they're happy to do that in their own time if it meant that they were more marketable and that they were actually going to be more relevant and have more meaning and purpose in the business that they work for. So there's a real appetite for the employees to be able to contribute there. Coming to the point around technical skills now, and we know there's always certain technical skills that's required as years go on. So here in 2019, according to LinkedIn, these are the technical skills that people were seeking. So maybe not a surprise, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data visualization. This list here isn't a standalone. Coming back to the lady's point here, there's also other skills that are also now in demand. And what we're seeing this is to be more behavioural skills. This is a piece of research done by IBM, and they were comparing from 2016 to 2018 what the key members of skills are looking for, executives are looking for. And you can see the top 4 up there are far more behavioural skills. Things like willingness to be flexible, agile and adaptable to change, ability to work effectively in team environments. So far more about how those people work, how adaptable and responsive and innovative they are, as well as the technical skills. A CEO study that's done by PwC every year, what they found was this, in this most recent study, it was these particular skills, and again, behavioural skills that CEOs were looking for. And this really tied back into the automation because they knew that they needed to become more machine-based and automate roles where they could for efficiencies. But what they needed was people to help with that transition and to help with that new world. So things like leadership, creativity, problem solving, they suddenly become very key skills. We did some research ourselves 2 years ago, and we found that 86% of employees believe that their skills are currently underutilised and that what they could offer is not actually being offered. I'm seeing some nods in the room. I won't make you do a show of hands, but just think to yourself and answer this question. Do you think you're using all of your skills in your role right now? If a couple of nods, a couple of wry smiles. And if you had to put a percentage on that, maybe it's 50% of your skills. How untapped are the resources on a macro level across the business when we're not drilling down and helping people use the skills they're naturally good at, or the ones that they want to contribute because at that point in time, that's what they're very interested in. So we all know this, the world is not the same, it's changing constantly. The only thing we know about that constant sense of change is that we're going to have to be agile. So not just businesses, but also individuals. So to have an agile business, we need an agile workforce. So how do we get into that? What are the steps we can take to be able to achieve them? Well, first of all, when you're listening to what people are asking, there's a real demand to be able to have a completely new career model. I'm not sure if you can read that right at the back there, but for example, and these are all different pieces of research, Deloitte found that 58% of companies are planning to redesign the way that they have a career model. 83% of companies are expecting to have highly flexible career models within the next 3 to 5 years. We have clients that say to us, we don't want job titles. We're moving away from job titles. Don't talk to me about job families. That's not a thing anymore. We want teams, we want project teams. How do we even start? If you do make that change, if you do start to change away from job titles and into some sort of new world, and I've got some suggestions here about our approach and what we've seen working. The research that actually comes back, and this was from a couple of years ago, but it shows that if you actually design your career around experiences rather than positions, it does lead to more satisfaction. So that even feedback that we receive is reinforcing that this is the change that they want. So we're moving from traditional through to open, so the full-time, part-time employees, more now to the gig economy. Does everyone know or have heard of that phrase, the gig economy? Yeah. I think it's a fancy phrase. It used to be stretch assignments and internal learning opportunities, but essentially the same thing, the ability to work in other teams, not necessarily the job role your contract says. This is a direction that we're seeing many organisations go, which really drills down into these new work patterns. So it's around experiential learning. It is still classroom learning and webinars, but it's all of it. It's a combination of learning experiences, people learning on the job, people being able to learn from their peers. That's what we're seeing is really making a difference when it comes to transforming the way a business currently is utilising the skills that they have. We did some research again, a different piece of research, and what we found was when you did put in place stretch assignments or gigs inside an organisation, engagement went up. And then when you think about it, that's not really too much of a surprise. People are having the chance to try something else. They're having a chance to engage with different people, creative mindsets. So again, research is confirming that if you are to go in this direction, this is what employees will really work with. Just as a bit of an example, we are a technology vendor. I'm not doing a demo here today, but just to show you a visual of some of the ways that you can think about showing gigs in your workplace. It doesn't have to be a heavy HR process. You can use technology to enable that matching between opportunities within the business and your teams. So for example here, you can show people maybe a 4-day project that you'd like them to contribute to. Maybe it's just 2 hours because you've got a marketing launch and that person who wants to get into marketing, they have the opportunity to network and see what it's like to be on site. You can post things like this and employees can put their hand up and apply for them. HR doesn't have to drive this. You could allow your employees to post their own gigs. Lots of different options with that there. The other component here is around career development. Now, I feel like career development used to be a nice to have, and then things got really busy and it sort of gets pushed to the bottom of the list. Josh Burson, as I mentioned before, he's on our board. He spoke at our conference earlier this year in London, and he talked about the fact that it really is going to help your people to prepare for their career, but also help prepare for the direction that you take business. So it's back on the agenda as being quite critical. He also shared some research he did when he was at Deloitte. Millennials here were a particular user group that they looked into, and interestingly, they rated training and development higher than cash bonuses. Now, millennials get a lot of flack, and we were talking about this at dinner last night, that there's a lot of assumptions made about different particular groups. It'd be interesting if you don't already to ask your user groups in your different employee groups what it is that they'd actually prioritise if they had the choice. We have a client that has gone down this path and they've seen huge impact. So they're a large client of ours, and actually over a 5-month period you can see in the thousands how many development actions were taken across the 55,000 users that they have using Fuel50, how many times they've logged in. So again, the adoption of people wanting career development, you can just see it in the numbers. So I'd like to have a bit of a checkpoint here, and I think everyone's mostly sitting next to someone else. Chat to your neighbour for a moment around everything I've shared so far, and if that resonates with your organisation or if you're experiencing something different. Just give you guys a minute or two to chat, and then we'll bring it back to a group chat if anyone's willing to share their story. So over to you guys to chat to your neighbour. I love the reaction just happened. Obviously there was something bubbling up in your minds and it was the right thing to pause to chat. I wish I could hear all these conversations. Please come by our stand so you can tell me what you're saying so I can eavesdrop. But it sounds like that this really promoted a passionate topic, either positively or negatively, that there's some reaction to what's happening in your organisations with career development. We do only have, I think, 9.5 minutes left of the session. So what I'll do is I want to thought provoke a little more on one more topic, and then the time that I've got at the end, I would love to hear your feedback. So thank you so much for chatting to your neighbours there. We have 3 principles that we're suggesting to shape this new talent economy. The first one is really around powering up your people. So we know that 42% of employees are requesting better visibility. They want transparency in their career organisation. They want to see where it is that they can go, what their options are. Our research shows from our own client data that when you give career transparency, there's a real impact on attrition. Now, I know that for some organisations, tenure is not a drama at all. In fact, you need people to leave. But for organisations where attrition is something that you're looking to manage, we can see a huge impact by the implementation of career path transparency. This slide here, we're talking about career path transparency and simplicity. We always use the example here at Fuel50. We want to be able to show employees where they are, where they'd like to go, and the sort of journey that they can choose to get there. We have that expectation of Uber. That's what the expectation is around career paths. You see I've crossed out the word millennial, really popular topic. Often millennials are said to be the only ones curious about their career. That's not what we think. We think human beings are curious about their career. That's every generation. So let's not tar the brush and ignore some really great people in your business. Let's make it simplistic for everyone. What we do is our approach is two options. You can either find a journey by plotting out where you'd go. So I'm here and I'd like to go here, or I'd like to be this when I grow up. But if you don't know what it is that you want to do and you'd just like to explore curious options, we give those. And it's also about moving away from the division you work in, because if you're looking to get to those project and agile ways of working, you need to understand the transferable skills that you have in your business. So helping people understand where else they could work for you using skills that they already have. And there's a few examples here of just how clear you might want to be to your employees in terms of that skill gap. We believe in transparency, so we think, why not tell people exactly where they are, their achievement lists, what they've done well, all that effort they've already gone to, acknowledge that, but then tell them where their stretch areas are, what they need to work on. We have a strong view that there's a virtuous gain cycle between career path transparency, and if you give that to employees in such a way where they want to use it, they trust that information, it's engaging, it doesn't feel like a HR compliance tool, then what you get in return is workforce skills visibility, which means you can trust your succession planning pipeline information that's coming through. So for us, we see this as two sides of the same coin. There we go. See, two sides of the same coin. But this is a real topic that we're passionate about, that we've seen this time and time again with each of our organisations. So it really helps with business cases when you're trying to justify why we should move in a new direction. You get some amazing intelligence that your board would be very interested in. I really wanted to ask you this question. In the interest of time, I'm going to say, come talk to us at the stand. Tell us, what are you hearing about with your employees? Is this what they're asking for as well? Are you getting asked something different? Or do you have employees that are wanting the traditional structure still? I'd love to hear your feedback. Just to close out though, the step number 2 was to power up your leaders. We talk about, are you looking for pivotal talent or talent that pivots? So going back to the point of when we used to have an abundant talent supply, you could be choosy and you could choose that pivotal talent. Now, you need to look at people that can retrain, can pivot their career, can go in the direction that makes the most sense for themselves and also for the company. So the traditional 9-box grid isn't going to give you that in our mind. We think this is flawed for a number of reasons. Our CEO has written a blog explaining this. But in short, you know, psychologists can't agree what potential is. So why are we asking first-line managers to make that decision? And if you have a first-line manager asking who's got potential and who's got performance, most of the time it's the same person. So then you just have a straight line across the graph. We think what's far more interesting is this matrix. And this is where we plot performance to passion. Help people understand the skills that they're particularly good at, the skills that they enjoy doing, that they tap into that intrinsic motivation. We all know that when there's a part of our job that we're naturally good at and enjoy more, we tend to not procrastinate over that. We're happily doing that. We put in more time. Versus the things that you might be good at, but you're fatigued. It's not something you want to do anymore. Often people feel they need to leave an organisation because they're so pigeonholed at being known for being good at something, when actually they'd like a change. Josh Bersin is a great example of this. I'm talking about him a lot today. I swear there's no payment coming here, but he's so well known for doing keynote presentations, and he's been doing that for many, many years. If you follow him online, you'll notice he's now got an online learning academy. He's pivoted in his career, because whilst he's an expert at speaking, he's done that for so long he wanted to change. So we need to think that that is something that does happen in businesses as well. So unpacking your development footprint. What we show for each employee is this graph, which is performance to passion and that talent sweet spot and what it is that they enjoy doing. And then we're encouraging them to play to their talents. And if you have a business where you're encouraging that transparency, that self-awareness, you're helping managers have visibility to this information so that they can make a micro tweak to every person in their team to get that macro impact across the organisation. You know, that is where the magic happens. We're human beings and we're creatures of habit. We want to do things we're good at. We don't want to keep doing things we're not so good at. So I won't ask you, and I was not planning to actually ask you to say this out loud. This is a private thought for yourself. If you want to jot your answer down. But I'd encourage you today to think the answers to this question. When I'm my best at work, what am I? So are you alone? Are you speaking? Are you in an Excel spreadsheet, deep in the data? Are you doing work that has purpose or meaning? If you can ask yourself that and think about what your ideal world would look like, and then how you compare that to where you are actually today, and imagine if you could make that change in the business. This is what we see here at Fuel50, and it's the stories, that the aha moments that people have where they look at their career in this really nice graph to say, I am really good at that. Or it's okay that I don't enjoy that. I'm allowed to be good at it, but not necessarily enjoy that. So that's my takeaway question to you. In the last couple of minutes, we talk about step 3 as powering up HR. Really simply here, we all, HR analytics is something that can be quite difficult to have, if you don't have your trusted data in your warehouses, in your organisation. But that skills intelligence, you can really transform the way HR makes decisions around succession planning, the way executives want to decide the future strategy. Do you have any gaps in your strategy? Are you in abundance of a particular skill, which is great, but not the critical skill over there that you need? By having that career path transparency, what you're seeing is almost like a match matrix or a SWOT analysis. You can put all of those skills in different categories, and they're actually at a named level. So if you're interested in being able to have a forecast for the future, really encourage you to consider making career path transparency one of your initiatives in the workplace, because it will give you that data. So you can do that, and my example here is you can do this by particular role, or you can do it through looking for a particular set of talents. So I have a team, I need them to have this skill, that skill, and at this particular level they need to have a PhD in maths. You can actually select those and then see the people that come back to you. Career path transparency, workforce skills intelligence leads to that level of ability for HR to really play around with the data and make a difference into the business. So, my last slide. 3 encouraging steps here as a takeaway. Understand the skills that you have now and the skills that you need in the future. Help your leaders in terms of their hiring strategy, not just consider critical skills, but those behavioural skills as well, the ones that are going to get you the people that you'll need to help make that change. And consider the flexible talent matrix. Consider things like the gig economy or internal stretch assignments. Just even that one change can make a real difference to how you shift your organisation from where it is now to where it needs to be in the future, based on all the feedback from employees. If any of you run employee engagement surveys, career development's usually in the top 3 results. So this is one of the actions that you can take there. I am at the end of my time, so I would just say, if this has been of interest to you and you'd like to hear from someone else, so not me being biased, you can come along to our event where we have our clients speaking, and they're really candid around what they've been on their journey. We see this as a real learning community. We're not always going to get it right. So we're having our HR professional clients share quite truthfully what they've experienced as they've gone through. So this will be in March next year here in London. If you've got any travel budget, we've actually got one in New York at the end of this month, so let me know if you want a ticket to that and you can get there. Other than that, I'll say thank you so much for being here. I've spoken really fast, but I feel like you've stayed up with me, so thank you. At the back of the room are my colleagues, and they've got one of our research brochures to share with you in a handy little bag so you don't have to carry it. Other than that, that's the end of the session. Thank you so much for listening. And come by the stand so I can eavesdrop on all those things you were saying earlier.